Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone. Um Jagdeesh here from Tashkent. So don't tell me what I'm doing in Tashkent. It's actually 0 degree centigrade temperature here, and that's why I'm wearing a pullover here. I had a late lunch with the team. We had some customer calls, and I rushed back to the hotel just in time. And yes, I could brew some tea as well. So welcome to the ClarITea Chat with a cup of tea. So welcome to this part two of AMA session. Ask me anything. This is the 33rd episode of ClarITea Chat. All thanks to all of you, who keep encouraging with your engagement, with the very intelligent and insightful questions, and comments and views and everything. So in the last Ask Me Anything session, we couldn't take up all the questions. The last session had got cancelled. Not cancelled. I had converted that to an Ask Me Anything session because my guest had a medical issue, and this time I deliberately kept it an AMA session because I was traveling and I did not really want to, mud my schedule with the prep chat and all the other stuff that we have to do, the prep that we have to do when we get a guest on the chat. It's not a extempore session. I do a prep chat with them. We identify certain themes. We weave in certain stories. We place them, and there's quite a bit of um, homework that a chat requires, and I didn't have time for that. So here is one more Ask Me Anything. So, but I think we have got a good format going here um, for the AMA sessions, which is that just collect all the backlog of all the questions which have come on previous ClarITea chats. People who have watched it afterwards and ask their questions, which obviously then sometimes don't get answered. So we have been collecting that backlog, and now we're going to collect that backlog every time so that anytime I get a chance to talk to you directly, I have some base to start with, right? Now, this will be a balance between your live questions and the questions which are there in the backlog. So we will kind of mix and match between the two. I offer to all of you that any one of you can come and share your experiences on, how ClarITea Chat has helped you. And if you have any case studies to share, which are like about business impact of IT, and what are the things that you did differently or where you went, outside of your sort of, agenda to basically make that happen for the customer. Um, and so let's start the conversation. Like all ClarITea chats, you will get honest answers. If I don't know the answer, I'll give you an approach or I'll give you a thought process. And more likely than not, I will have some case study to talk about from either my experience or my peers' experiences. Remember that, this is 33rd episode of ClarITea Chat, and I have had the collective intelligence and inputs and experiences from many of my very senior industry CIOs and business leaders, including a CHRO and a CEO. Um, so I think, but before I go ahead, I must say that it's the magic of technology that this is probably the sixth or seventh new place from where I am doing this ClarITea Chat. Sitting here in Tashkent, talking to all of you. So thanks to technology and thanks to all of you. So before I go ahead, let me request my audience to share your name and where you're joining from in the comment box of LinkedIn or YouTube. And let's begin the session. Let me, I also have a surprise guest here. I had mentioned in my comments that, in my post that, if any one of you has anything to share, please join us. And we had Jagdeesh Tambi here who will be joining us here. So Let me go back to some of our, questions which we have tried to club in categories of leadership, business relationships, managing partners, trends, views, and analytics. So let's begin with leadership. I have the question from Pawan Roy. He has been a regular on the ClarITea Chat. So, and I'm like wondering how we could do a question and answer from him. But his question some time back was, CIOs could do macro management or micromanagement or mix approach. What's the pros and cons? What's your way of working and your experience? Oh, this is a fantastic question. So I can tell you a story from when I was not a CIO. Um, and I think I had just started my, stint in IT with the CRM program. Um, well, one of our good friends from technology world had given us an advice that whenever you do a program, do take the time to learn the technology, its boundaries, and its constraints. If you are trying to push the boundaries where the constraints are, you'll be breaking your head on the wrong wall. And if you're accepting boundaries where the flexibilities are, you're probably not doing justice. So we had taken a training program. The entire core team had taken a training program on SQL, 3 weeks program. It's almost like a very high-end certification into Siebel, and we had come back. Now, um, I was like in charge of the service module, and there was a form on which there was a label which the spelling was wrong. Okay, so I just went up one floor to the development floor and asked the guys. I said, "Hey, who's developing the service module?" I got a name, and I said, "Hey, you know what? This label this is wrong. Look at this. And how much time can you take to resolve it?" He kind of looked here and there and did something like this, and I said, "Yeah, sir, I can do it in a week." Okay. So I said, "Good. Do you have tools?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Let's go to your terminal." So we went to his PC. I said, "Open the tools." I said, "Okay, go to this, do. And like 7 steps later, I said, "Press F5." For all the guys in the old age, the F5 used to be like, for rendering the code, simulating the code. And wow, the form was out there with the correct spelling. Now, uh, I didn't say anything. I just smiled at him and I said, "Thank you so much. You could do a job of a week in a few minutes." And that actually, made a big difference afterwards. Nobody took any liberties. Nobody took us for granted. People kind of figured out that we know the technology, and we were able to do things on time. So, what's the lesson here? The lesson here is that you got to go into the details sometimes, otherwise you can be taken for a ride. But all the time, absolutely no. So only when there are exceptions, only when there are red flags that happen, right? When it comes to root causing, let's say, a production issue or an outage, I think you got to just roll up your sleeves and sit with the team. And even if you don't know the subject, ask the right question. Go into the why, the 6 whys process, and get to the root cause. And then so there are times that you need to roll up your sleeves and get into the brass tacks. There are times when you got to focus more on the strategy, leaving the operations to the team, and trusting them to do their job, right? Now, this incident happened long, long way back, so I've forgotten the name of the developer. So nothing against you if you're listening to it, nothing against you as such, but it's just that you got to know what you are working on in order to be able to manage it well, control it well, and make sure that you don't get taken for a ride. Now, let me end this particular question with a term that I got from Kalpana Maniyar, and she said that as a CIO, you need to have a Garuda Drishti as well as a Sarp Drishti. Okay, so Garud is the kite or Um the eagle, okay, so the eagle is looking at things from, like, whatever, 5,000 feet above, but he has very sharp eyes, so he's kind of knows the lay of the land. As And you also need to have the sarpadrishti, which is like, you are like crawling on the ground, and you are like connected with the details. Now you need to have a combination of both. So you need the garud drishti to figure out where exactly I need to look for the details, and then you need the sarpadrishti to figure out those details for yourself by asking the right questions, by reaching out to the right people. Okay. Now, so I'll take another question before I bring in Jagdeesh. Now, this is from Amarinder Singh, and I think he's also here, mentioning that we are on 33rd episode. Great going, Jagdeesh. Thank you, Amarinder, for that. So I'm picking up an old question of yours. I think we didn't answer it that time. So this is: what are the real threats to the CIO role, if CIO's role, if any? I can take this question in two parts. One is the threat to the role called CIO. Okay, and the second is the threat to the person who's occupying the CIO role. Okay, so let me take the first one first. I think the CIO role is not going anywhere. Uh, People have written the epitaph of CIO role many a times. I remember when I became the CIO, within a year, somebody very senior told me that, oh, so you are the new CIO of Tata Motors. Jagdeesh, what CIO means? CIO means the career is over. uh, but actually not. Um, so even though people have written epitaphs of it, it's not yet over. There is quite a lot, as technology keeps getting more and more complex, as frameworks keep getting, like, moving faster and faster, as the partner ecosystem becomes, more and more capable and complex. You require someone to manage the entire thing for you, and it cannot be, somebody who's marketing. The marketing guy has to look at marketing technologies, marketing vendors, marketing processes, and the KPIs that they will be looked at will be from a different point of view. So for every CXO role, there are a certain set of KPIs that they are going to be evaluated on. And I think technology innovation, keeping the technology running well, keeping the organization safe from cyber threats, driving business process innovation through technology, driving, bringing new technologies to the organization, and all of that. These are the kind of things where the CIO's KPIs will come from. When So for as long as I have been working, I mean, working means in executive roles, I've had a balanced scorecard with KPIs. And when somebody tells me the CIO role is under threat, I actually can go back to that scorecard and I can look at, hey, you know what? If this role is under threat, then who owns all those KPIs? And I don't see anyone who is interested in some of those KPIs, right? Like, for example, managing large IT contracts, managing the governance with the partners, like, managing the relationships with big partners to bring in technology capabilities. These are all like CIO jobs. Now, coming to the second part of that question, Amrinder, is like, is there a real threat to the CIO's role? That means the person's role. Yes, of course. I mean, if you uh, the domain of technology is moving the fastest, is changing the fastest compared to any other function. In fact, uh, the incursion of technology in all these other functions is actually, changing the roles of those functions fastest. Like, it's bringing automation into recruitment, bringing automation into finance processes, you name it, like, manufacturing processes, planning processes. So technology is disrupting the roles in all the functions, and that means the biggest disruption is going to be in the role which is going to manage it for everyone. So if you're not able to keep yourself up to date, not just in terms of technology, but also in terms of being able to manage the organization change, being able to manage the CXO relationships, the organization politics, being able to manage the partners well, being able to manage the programs, being able to attract the talent. So there are a number of things that you need to do to be successful as a CIO, and you have to really look into the mirror and see whether you are able to do all of that or not. And if not, then you better find a mentor, you better seek some help, or I can't say take some course because that's what everyone is taking right now. Okay, but I think that's the time to find a mentor or a coach, who can basically work as a sounding board to you and can help you, in figuring out what to change and how to change, right? So let me now shift gears a little bit, and now let me bring in all the people who have joined the chat. Let me just acknowledge them. So I have Amarinder, 33rd episode. Thank you, Amarinder. I have Dattatray coming in from Muscat, Oman. Thank you, Dattatray. I think you've become a regular. Uh, can I say addict? It's a good addiction. Hi, Pawan. Good evening from Calcutta. I have someone from the CIS region that I can tell you, but I don't know who it is. Then we have Mayank Jain from Gurgaon. Hey, Mayank, good to see you. And I was talking of Siebel, and here I see Mayank, who basically sold Siebel to us. I think it's the same Mayank Jain, if I'm correct, right? And then we have Upkar Singh from Noida. Hey, thank you guys. Thanks for joining in. So let me bring in Jagdeesh Tambi, who offered to join us on the chat. But where is Jagdeesh? Oh, here comes. I was figuring out where is the window. I was wondering whether you got locked out. Hi, Jagdeesh.
Hey Jagdeesh, it's echoing again today.
Ah, it's echoing again today.
Jagdish to Jagdish, yeah.
So for everyone out there, there was a joke. So Jagdish and I work together, and whenever we would meet, I would say hi Jagdish, and he would say hi Jagdish, and say, hey, there's an echo somewhere.
Hey,
But good.
thank you for inviting me on this session, Jagdish. Chai pe charcha.
Welcome. So, Jagdish, I mean, I saw your comment on LinkedIn. You said that you wanted to share a case study, or you also wanted to sort of share how ClarITea Chat has helped you. So let's start with the second one first. Tell us some real incidences where ClarITea Chat helped you in like shaping conversations differently.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, first of all, Jagdish and team, having me on this ClarITea Chat and then sharing my experiences. And first of all, and congratulations for 33rd session. It's not a easy task, and hosting this on a trot, 33 sessions without a break. It's a marvelous achievement. And lot of learnings, and sometimes I'm unable to join, but I do get a chance. Whenever I do get a chance, I go through the recording once. So some of the key takeaways, Jagdish, I want to share, one is the key, couple of points I don't want to share with the in terms of time we have. One is communication, keeping communication channels with the business and the likes, or within the teams, or within IT or business users and various stakeholders, right? So that's one what I could learn from the leaders or CIOs or CEOs who were joining these sessions. And then also some of the leaders sharing that they have diversified from finance to CIO roles to some other roles, right? And they're ready to take challenges, and then ready to accept what it is coming, and then the kind of backing coming from their leaders, right? It's phenomenal. That's one of the key thing where leaders back up is seen as an a positive, which helped these CIOs and leaders to thrive. And also, like you touched upon few points on the making the processes robust, right? So IT or digital transformation is not going to help unless until there is a strong process, and then acceptance of that process and change management which comes along with the process, right, with this transformation. So that's another key point we could learn from it. And then also, the key point I want to take away from one of the sessions are the customer satisfaction, right? So I want to take a use case with the customer satisfaction here. I remember my days before joining Tata Technologies, Tata Motors, right? So I was with Rockwell Distributor those days, and we were helping Tata Motors, TAL those days, right? Tata Automation Limited, and we used to work with Foundry. So those are the days we were working with Foundry teams, and then we had a good connect and helping them on automation world. And then I happen to be with you in your team on the IT as a center of excellence, initiatives. And then the team came back. They had a key problem to solve, which the foundry process, casting requires a lot of metals to be, have a molten metal and then have a casting. For example, engine or transaxle and gearbox and many other things, right? So they have to have all these metals. Composition has to have a right composition to get a good quality. Otherwise, there used to be huge, non-quality cost or rejections. And another key point was the leader, the plant operators, right? They are very experienced, and they had all their formulas in their head. Okay, if this is the batch, you need to put so and so cast iron, so and so carbon and XYZ, and some of the elements like zinc or lead, which are very expensive, right? So those days,
Definitely.
Tata Motors want to optimize the cost of this, excess usage of key or expensive metals, as well as also de-skill this process, because it's everything on this person head. If the person is not coming, or he gets retired, what to do next, right? It's so that then that is where the request came from the business. And as you are aware, the low satisfaction on IT, and which our team had helped them to. Those days again, you were pushing a lot. You are not allowing us to have any on-site server, right? On-prem servers. You migrate to the cloud. Those days, it's a completely new technology, new word, new buzzword for us. And without knowing all these words like cloud or IIoT and all, right? So we have connected automation system, PLCs, and then the test equipment, which was giving the metal composition, and then the IT applications, databases, all we connected to the cloud server, where operator is just all he needs to do is select which recipe he wants to run, and then automatically it used to give the composition. That's it. He has to blindly follow that composition, whatever is shown on the screen, and then feed that particular batch, and then capture the data, so that basically it gives kind of the results, and keeps tracking this particular data, and also has this financial calculations, what was the recommended, what was put, and then what is the outcome. So this has really helped the business, whatever goals that they wanted to achieve in terms of reducing the cost. The scrap cost also reduced drastically, the metal cost reduced drastically, and then the de-skilling of the processes. And also those days, right, like these technologies acceptance, right, when nobody knows IIoT and cloud. So the first time which under your leadership we were able to drive this, one of the marvelous example. And all this culminating to customer satisfaction, right? So I know, like we spent hardly some 3-4 lakhs in achieving this simple tools, and we had the ROI within 6 months or so, right? So it's phenomenal achievement, and probably I leave I allow you to speak about what was the customer satisfaction and what happened next, right? For example, a lot of requests coming from the users, and this project really brought laurels like ICMG awards and NDTV awards, if you remember, right? So it's marvelous. So customer satisfaction here, the IT processes with the technologies, knowing, understanding the processes, deploying this, right? You're connecting from shop
Absolutely.
floor guys to the the top top floor.
Yeah,
Thank you for
yeah.
that
So,
opportunity, and thank you again for giving me this floor to share my experiences.
thanks, Jagdeesh, for offering to come here. And I mean, I think, let me tell everyone, like, in my, uh, I mean, I didn't reach out to Jagdeesh actually. Jagdeesh said that, hey, I want to share something. And I think that's a marvelous example. In fact, sometime I should talk about it, talk about how to, measure, manage customer satisfaction, and, how to make it exciting. I think we had a whole very elaborate process around measuring customer satisfaction, and then we used to do a ton of analysis on that, and then identify, like, an annual action plan based on that. So, and many times people do satisfaction survey exercises, just for vanity, to show how good we are. But I think the real value that we get from those exercises are actually the action plans that come out of them. So having said that, this Foundry is a classic case. So the first time, I mean, I did this exercise, I remember it was, I think, 2010 or so, when
13, 14.
uh, yeah. So this was actually a little bit, Jagdish, you came a little bit later, but there was some water which had flown under the bridge by that time. So we did this customer satisfaction exercise, and I was just doing that Pareto analysis of it, like, the distribution of it, which are the best areas, the worst areas. Then we were doing it actually by the function, by the location, the slicing and dicing of it. But, something which really stood out was Foundry. Like, Foundry had, I think, the worst customer satisfaction. Our average satisfaction about some 3.35, if I'm correct, out of 5. And I think it was under 3. It was, I think, 2.7 or something like that. One of the worst. And then I think that was the first time, I must say, that I acknowledged that we have a Foundry. Because, some of these functions, I mean, ideally you would say that a Foundry should be part of Tata Steel, why Tata Motors? But yeah, Tata Motors has a Foundry. I think it still has a Foundry. And that Foundry does some really business critical work, which is like, the castings of engine blocks and the heads and all, and which then basically go for machining and other stuff. And these are like, some really interesting alloys, because they are really high stress components, and therefore, like, it's good, it's important to good that mix of that alloy, right? What,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
recipe that Jagdish was talking about. Well, going back to that customer satisfaction, we actually formed a crack team. Got, I remember, a GT there, and I think Asmita was there, and
Yeah.
few more guys from Tire Technology and Tata Motors. And then we basically, they just went around trying to figure out, like, why people are unhappy, and they figured out that, listen, this is, when I looked at it, I said, oh my God, in a organization which is completely built up around discrete manufacturing, you have a small part of the organization which is into process manufacturing, right? And these are
Process.
two very different process domains to manage, and we got to learn that completely, from the scratch. So I think, that's when the transformation part started. We started with small things, automating some small stuff. I remember then this project came, where we had, I think, if I remember, there was a sensor, inside the furnace, which would actually also tell you what's the current, sort of mix. and based on that you had to adjust your final mix. And I think that
Final mix,
reading
yes.
the
Yeah.
temperature reading, so integrating that sensor readings into the application, right? And then
Yes.
basically then calculating what is the mix of the next one, because it's a process manufacturing, it's like just
Yeah.
flowing. So
Yeah.
you got
So before the
to
batch is out, one has to
exactly.
basically,
So you have to
ensure the
right
batch
now,
quality is good.
exactly. So right now, before the next one comes out, before the next ladle comes out, you got to like send the right mix of alloy there. And I think it's pretty complex, but once you get the maths of it right, and once you're able to
Yes.
automate it right, then the magic starts. And they started calculating their cost of alloy per casting and all that,
Yeah.
and there was a
Casting.
drop in that. There was like improvement in quality because you're getting the mix right. And I think that's a great example of, as Jagdeesh said, it didn't require much money. Okay. If you're thinking that, hey, my management is not giving me a lot of money and I can't do, any kind of transformation using digital technologies, you can look around for these opportunities. I think the focus has to be on improving the business process. The focus has to be on reducing the pain of the business stakeholder. I think that's what we keep talking about, user experience. But even when you look at a process and a business critical process where users are having difficulties or having a lot of manual work, so think about how you can do manual, how you can automate that, and then improve the quality of life of those people. But thank you, Jagdish, for bringing those memories back. I must
Yeah.
say it's a bit of nostalgia as well. you know to go through some of those real case studies again.
You
Thanks,
remember,
thanks.
the key takeaway
Yeah,
was like one page user manual, right? And that too in
absolutely.
Marathi.
Yeah,
Icing on
absolutely, absolutely.
cake.
Yeah, and I think it was a one-page application also, right? The application wasn't
Yes.
too many. It was one or two-page
Only
application.
two slides. Two slides. One for
Uh,
end user, one for administrator. That's a two-slide application.
Absolutely, just two slide, and I think the power of that application was in simplicity as well as that
Yes.
one-page user manual. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for bringing those memories, Jagdish. Thank you. Thanks for
Thank
thanks
you.
for coming on ClarITea Chat.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So that was Jagdish Tambi, my old colleague. He was handling the manufacturing execution system competency. I think now he's in Schneider, if I'm correct. Sharing his experience, both how he's benefited from ClarITea Chat plus business impact case study. So when we have these ask me anything sessions, guys, I'll be very very happy to have you talk about your experiences with these kind of case studies, and some really good lessons out there. Keep it simple. One page user manual, one page application. Take the intelligence at the back end, all your calculation and mathematics, and just keep it really simple for the end user, the person on the foundry who's doing that that recipe of alloys. How can you make it simpler and simpler for him or her, right? Okay, so let me go back to our audience here. We have Webhav Mandravatkar. Great going. Thank you, Webhav, for joining. And yes, Mayank confirms that he's the same guy who sold us Siebel. And Mayank, I can tell you that that's still running. I think it was 2003, 18 years, 19 years, it's still running. You and I have lost a few here, but that system is still running young. It's still in teens. And we have Amrinder. Thanks a lot, Jagdish, for comprehensive answer and doing the split between the role and KPIs, the individual and the contours. Thanks, Amrinder, for that appreciation. I generally try to break down things or questions into like the core principles and then address them one by one. And thanks for that appreciation. And I have my friend from Bangalore, Nitin Harne. Hey, hello, Nitin. Thanks for joining. And I have another friend from CIS. I'm really happy bringing my friends from CIS here because I am in CIS. I am sitting in Uzbekistan in Tashkent, doing this ClarITea Chat with all of you. Okay, so let us let's go forward. Um, I have I think I don't know whether I took this question, but let me still take it. Um, Vinay, I don't know whether we took it before or not, but I think it's a good question. Always good to have these questions answered again. How to transform defensive mindset to offensive mindset of IT team in the current environment? This question came from Subhojit Roy, who's the ex-CIO of SBI Funds Management, um, of IT team in the current environment. So let's understand, where that defensive and offensive comes from. So we are certain roles defensive in nature, where certain roles offensive in nature. And like for example, if you see the sales roles, right, they're typically offensive in nature because they're highly uh, targeted at the business outcomes, which is revenue, right? So you look at people in operational roles, they will be very offensive. I mean, not offensive in the emotional term, but in terms of like go-getters, going getting it done. Whether you look at people in manufacturing or supply chain, because if they are not, work will stop. If you don't get materials on time, the work will stop. If you don't sell enough, you will probably lose market share, or your revenues will drop. And I think all their incentive systems and everything is driven by that. But when you look at defensive mindset, who has defensive mindset, where you have to where it is more about compliance, where it does not be affect so much. Your job is not very time critical and all that, and then therefore you have the time to be defensive. You have the time and the luxury to be defensive. Okay, when you are in sales, 31st is 31st. You cannot buy one more day, right? When you're in IT, you can easily buy 3 more weeks of time to go live. So coming to that, I think the offensive mindset comes when you believe that you are able to impact the organization and its goal in a very tangible manner, and you believe in it. As I said, it's not that you do or not. Everyone in IT does impact organization results, but in a sort of subtle and indirect and long term way, which basically makes us doubt that part a little bit, that are we making a difference, right? So, but if you believe that you're making a difference, and whatever you're doing is making a difference, you will be absolutely offensive about it. Okay. I mean, let me give you an a case study from my experience, and it's not just one case study. This used to happen very regularly. Okay, I believed, because I came from business. I had seen how IT enabled, or sort of in a way not enabled business, and I said, what, IT has to make an impact, right? I mean, you don't have an option. And then it would also happen many a times, initially more, later on less, that people would ask for a change request. Okay, and then we get the change request done. The UAT will take a lot of time, and after the UAT takes a lot of time, there's nobody using it. Okay, so I said, listen, every change request is like quite a few hours of organization resources. Okay, and these resources cannot be wasted. It's neither me nor a business person raising a change request, nor a business process owner raising a change request has a right to waste organization resources. So I started bringing accountability into those. And I said, listen, I want to know all those change requests, which have either not been UAT'd, or which are not been adopted. That means, people have not started using those transactions or using those modules. And I want to have a discussion with those BPOs, with the business process owners, as to why it's happening like that. I think that was a strong message. The moment it came to that, you gave to CRs and nothing has been done, and CIO wants to meet you. I think that stirred something in the organization. Okay, so maybe one more lesson which I didn't say right in the beginning. Do you respect organization's resources? That if you are consuming those resources and that resources are not making and that's not making an impact, does it stir something inside you or not? It did for me. And I also gave a directive to my team. I said, listen, let us also give a certain, weightage to the people who are giving us the business change, the system change request from business. I would like to know who are the people who are more committed. That means, they are asking us to make changes. And the moment we make those changes, they start running with it and they start transforming the respective business process with it. Vis-a-vis, I want to know those people, who are like just sleeping on it and they are making the changes because, some user said, hey, no, it's not working, and then they slept on it. And I said, let us prioritize on those business users who are adopting IT faster, right? So I created a back pressure on the business folks or the IT touch points from business to start holding them accountable. Why should everyone hold IT accountable? Why can't I hold business guys accountable? And I just took that charge and I also told my bosses, I said, listen, this is the framework I'm putting because the resources are limited. I don't have unlimited number of laptops. I don't have unlimited amount of development capacity. So I will prioritize based on business impact. Okay. I hope that gives you a sense of what being offensive means. It is like respecting the organization's resources. It is holding the business partners accountable. It is holding the vendor partners accountable. I remember we had a group company and we challenged them to basically do cloud services for us, and they were taking their sweet time, and I think we basically had a governance meeting and we said that these are the 10 things we want you to do in managing our cloud presence, and we want it by this and this time, and we held them accountable to it. They came back. By that time they had done 4 out of those 10 things, and I said, listen, I'm giving you 3 more months, nothing else, otherwise this scope is going out of your scope. And again, 3 months back there was not much movement, and I actually cut out the contract and I gave it to a small vendor, and that was holding them accountable. Even though group company, they could go and complain to group offices, they could I mean, there are a whole host of things that you suffer being part of a large group. But no, I mean, that's playing on the front foot, that's playing offensive, and nobody's above accountability. So you want to play the offensive game, start bringing accountability more and more into your discussions. I hope that makes sense, Subhojit da, if you are there on the chat. So let me end there. I think I'm getting emotional. But yeah, I was. I mean, just on a not really on a lighter note, on a serious note, I was very, very empathetic towards the hard work that my teams were putting, and I really hated it. When these guys are, giving their heart and soul and working overtime and getting some programs made, migrated to production, and then nobody uses it. I don't think they ever looked at it whether somebody is using it or not. But as somebody who was sitting and looking at the entire chain, it hurt me to see their efforts going wasted. So maybe the other thing is that start respecting your own team's efforts, start respecting the work that your IT team is doing, and not let any part of that go waste. And that's one way of going from defensive to offensive. Okay. So let me now come back to there's a question from Dattatray. So Dattatray says, how do we attach a dollar value to data we carry in the organization? For example, data in the ERP server. If we lose all important data residing in ERP server, what would CEO, CIO response to stakeholders with value associated with this? Question is all about knowing or calculating value of data in any organization carry at any given time. I think that's a very good question, Dattatray. This is so. I think this question has a sort of contradiction in it. This is like, you know, you asking me, what kind of value should I put on water, or what kind of value should I put on oxygen, right? So can an organization work without data? The answer is absolutely no. It cannot work without data, right? Now, if you cannot work without data, can you afford to lose that data? No. So I would say the value to that data is like, invaluable. It's a invaluable means it's a organization's question of survival. So I guess I think somewhere your question is also related to setting up a disaster recovery, and which is why you're probably asking that question. Please send me a comment if it is related to disaster recovery, or maybe a data backup solution or something like that. These are, I think, some of these discussions we need to have right up front, that hey, this is not done. This is like paying an employee a salary. It is like having my backup strategy in place properly. This is like having a DR uh, for at least my critical stuff like my ERP, right? Or any of my, let's say, supply chain system. That's essential. You cannot. Okay, so you're saying not related to ERP, right? Okay. So so Dattatray, I think you got the answer to answer. It is not, sometimes the value cannot be looked at from a dollar point of view. It has to be looked at from its criticality point of view. I think the question to ask is that, what if that data was not there, right? Would I be able to operate? How much would it hamper my operations? And let me give you an example. For example, you have a transaction system, and you also have an analytics system, right? Now, let's say the analytics system didn't have a backup, and sort of crashes, and you lose all that data. I mean, what's the business impact? Yes, there will be a business impact a little bit, but is it like, have I lost my data? No, because my analytics is a secondary database. Analytics always gets populated from, your transaction system. So you could actually repopulate it, right? You can run the same ETLs and repopulate it. It may be a few days of downtime for analytics, but eventually, in terms of impact on business, depending on the context, there may be a low or no impact on the business. So you cannot put one yardstick to it, but you also cannot discount it completely. Okay. I hope that answers your question. I mean, if there's a clarifying question, I'll be happy to take the clarifying question as well. Okay. Please send across if it didn't answer your question fully. So let me go ahead. Then I have on managing partners, I have a question from Raguraman Thulasiraman, which is how partners, IT companies, important for CIO in his vision, goal accomplishments. Okay. So before I go to that question, Dattatray has asked that clarifying question. We get to hear that company has lost USD 1 million, 2 million value of data. So how do we get that value in billion? I don't know how do they calculate that value, Dattatray, frankly. I think generally when they talk about, millions, the way I read them is that, that's a million number of records they have lost. I don't know whether they have put a dollar value in it. That dollar value could be a potential, calculation from any of the consultants, or there may be some methodology which I'm not aware of. But thanks for that. Yeah. So now coming back to question from Raguraman, how partners, IT companies important for CIO and vision goal accomplishment. Absolutely important, because if you saw the video right in the beginning of the ClarITea Chat, where we are setting out the purpose, there's a mention that 95% of the technology talent is on the supplier side. It's either on the product partners side, like, whether it's Microsoft or Google or, any of the product guys out there, or it is on the system integrator side, whether it is like, Accenture or IBM or TCS or Infosys or any of these companies. So when 95% plus of your technology talent is out there, how can you build a strong technology foundation for your organization if you're not working with them, or if you're not effectively leveraging with them or effectively partnering with them? Okay. So, absolutely essential, but are we able to leverage it to the potential? The answer is doubtful, because, and why is that doubtful? Is because, wait, I brew my own tea. So nobody in my family to give me tea, so I had to brew my own tea. So coming back, see, one of my management professors told used to say that, your future is frozen in your past. Okay. And what has been our past in terms of managing vendors or partners? We basically, are used to, uh, being in a parental relationship with our partners. So if you look at whether it's manufacturing or whether it's services, anywhere, wherever you look at partners out there, you sort of have a parental attitude towards them. That means, it's very task oriented. Okay. You give them the SOPs, they execute those SOPs for you. You give them a design, you give them the SOPs of manufacturing, give them the quality parameters. They basically just follow all that to the T, and they will come and give you the component, right? You give them an SOP, they will do some service for you. So when you have top talent with your partners, that approach won't work. A parental approach with them won't work. So what will work with them is, more collaboration, where, you're asking for their help. You're asking them to challenge you. Like, I mean, I always told my partners that, hey, I want to learn from people you are partner of, who are better than us. Come and tell me, like, what are things that GM does better than us, or let's say what Ford does better than us, right? I mean, I would also challenge them that, hey, these are my sort of issues. I mean, I would have my discussions with my business functions, and anything that I cannot solve or that I do not know, I'll actually go back to my partners and I'll say that, hey, this is the process, this is the function, this is the problem. Uh, can you just ping around, your own COEs and check if somebody has solved a problem like this before? And I used to get quick answers. Even in new age products, I used to figure out my way to sometimes the engineering team. Okay, and I mean, for Siebel, where we were really going the cutting edge. I still have friends in Siebel Engineering, who I made friends with when long back, when I was reaching out to them, saying that, hey, you know what, this is what we want to do, and your products is not able to do. How can you help us solve that? If not now, then maybe 6 months later. So answer is, they are part of your vision. You have to learn how to leverage them. It is not you have to unlearn the traditional vendor management that you have been doing, and you have to basically drive value driven conversations with them. You have to drive benchmarking related conversations with them, and you have to challenge them to come back to you with new stuff. It was actually part of my article, where what I wrote about 5 New Year resolutions that I will ask my partners to add value to from a practical point of view. So I hope that answers the question. Now coming back to the previous question of Dattatray, it is Vishwa with this saying how to quantify that data loss. That is the question, I believe. Yes, yeah, Vishwa. I think that's a question, that how to quantify the data loss, and I think I have actually no clue to that. Okay, as to how to quantify that data loss. One way to quantify the data loss can be like, all the costs that you will have to undertake to basically, clean up the shit that hit the fan. Okay. Other could be, potential litigations which you should be ready for, and that means you're provisioning certain amount for them. The third could be, I don't know if there are if GDPR covers, but sometimes you have to also factor in some penalties and all which are there as part of written regulations. So that's how it gets. Okay. So we have another live question which is from Shyam Sunder Pandey. It says, what according to you is a good IT model for an organization, central or distributed, when it comes to speed of deployment of solutions? Okay, interesting one. See, there are various IT models. I think there is no. I don't know whether there's a final answer to this problem where whether a central IT model is good or a distributed IT model is good. But I can sort of tell you that there is a fork model of IT. Okay, uh, I have written an article on the fork model of IT. I'm requesting my team to fish out the link of that particular article and then send it to and put it and answer your comment with the link to that article. This was a beta quest as well as like I think I shared it on LinkedIn as well. It's basically a fork model, so if you take this as a fork, this is the handle and this is the body and these are the tines as they call it, the the fingers that come out of the this thing. So a typical fork model says that any kind of infrastructure or anything which is uh, um, uh, like for example your networks, your data centers, your core, your big ticket contracts with the big partners, all of that, they are all like handles, right? So keep them one across the organization, right? And then you have the palm. This palm is basically your entire reusable portfolio of applications, processes, capabilities. Like for example, you may have a call center, you can leverage it for 20 different things. You may have an SAP that you can use for any kind of processes that result in any financial transaction or impact. Um, so think of your applications here, and these tines or these fingers are like when a fork works, it actually, these tines are the ones that dig into the food. So think of food as the business value, as the customer touch points or the business value chain touch points. Now these are the ones who are digging into them, so you got to leave them free, so there's a so when it comes to individual businesses, business units or functions, you need to give them certain powers to do their processes in the best possible manner to make the desired impact, right? But let us say if your service function says that, hey, I want to use this data center, that doesn't create a distinct impact whether the data center is one here or the one there, right? So you need to say that, hey, you know what, this belongs to the handle of the fork, right? If they want to say that, listen, I want to use this particular application and all, you have to say that, hey, first listen, first look at this before we add anything, any another layer to this. First look at this, can you do it from here, right? If it is like something which is very specific, let's say for example, handling a customer contact as his vehicle has broken down, and there's an entire experience that you are stitching through some other application, you got to leave them free. So fork model is a good framework for not really deciding whether central or distributed, but to decide which parts of your IT to keep central and which parts of them to keep distributed, and even like delegate the powers to your business functions. Okay, so let me go to the last question. We are just out of time. I know we haven't covered all the questions in our in the backlog. So guys, we'll keep as and when I get this chance to do the ask me anything, I'll keep covering these questions. So let's keep developing the backlog. And for all of you who are watching the recording of this session, please keep your questions. We may take them up in the next AMA session. Okay, so here's a question from Pawan Roy saying, for example, Tata Motor CRM was one of the biggest CRM rollouts used for sales, service, channel partners as well as marketing. It means bringing transparency in system. Business may not have supported of success of this project for any reason, but in IT can push at certain extent. What is the good balance mantra to push by IT? That's a great question. I think it's actually how do you get your work done? So it's a classic issue in change management that you will have people who would not want to change for whatever reason, sometimes emotional reasons, right? So let me take an example here. So when we were deploying the CRM at the dealerships, who are the guys who would be the most resistant to change at the dealership? Just think about it. These will be the people who have developed those systems who are already working at the dealership. These used to be in our times the D-base or the Foxpro based systems. And they're like, it's my baby. So how can I throw my baby out and bring like some, Tata Motors given system in? So we had to strategize for it. We had to anticipate it that this challenge is going to come. And what we did was we actually went into the shoes of that, we used to call them as system administrators. We went inside the shoes of that system administrator and we said, okay, what are his aspirations? What are his pains? What would he want to do in life? And we figured out that, most of these guys are like, not very old people. And, they still have a lot of career ahead of them. Yeah, they have a certain amount of power being the administrators of that system. So here is what we designed. Okay, so first thing, we basically put them on a pedestal. We said that, listen, you are the guys who are going to make it, who are going to get it done. We created certain sort of, like social, sort of brightness around that role. So for all the other roles, they would get trained at the dealership. For these people, we actually used to get them to travel and come out. And these people, they never travel actually. Your salespeople may travel, but the system administrators never travel. So we got them to travel. For everyone used to go through a 2 to 3 days training program. We created a 7 days, 5 days training program for them. We had our senior people come into that training program. And so the whole experience was like a premium experience for them. We made them feel tangibly that they are part of something big and they have a big role to play in that. So that was the first one. Then the second one was still like, they have created a system. How can they let it go? And, we basically told them, listen, where is the future? Where is the future of technology and where is your future? Is it in Foxpro or DBase or is it in a web-based system? And I think being technology people, they're smart enough to understand where the future lies. And we said, listen, you do this and, you secure your future. So we connected to both, um, their emotional aspiration. They were part of back office, invisible. We brought them to the forefront, gave them a lot of importance. We connected to the personal aspiration, kind of connected it to their career growth. And the third most important thing is that they had a certain amount of empowerment in that system as an administrator. And we designed the whole system. We stretched ourselves. We stretched technology. We designed the whole system to make sure that whatever empowerment they had in the old system, they would continue to have it in the new system as well. And we were very empathetic to their request. Like, for example, they said that, I don't want anybody in my dealership to raise a request before, like I have looked at it. We said, very good, that reduces my support efforts. Yeah? So instead of if you are able to solve, let's say, 70% of the support request locally with yourself, I mean, we are all the more happy because my support load goes down. So we kind of enabled all of those things in a way that we kept it very personal for them. They felt empowered, they felt enthusiastic about it. They got an experience which made them trust that these guys are well-meaning guys. They're not out there to cut me down, but they're here to do something good for organization and for us. And I think that kind of brings us to the core of any change management, which is to build trust. Okay, so I would uh, yeah, we had to push quite a lot. Sorry, Pawan, the other part of your question, we had to push quite a lot as well. But that was like, for process changes. But once you have done the first part, which is doing the pull part of it, I think the push part becomes easy, because then when you push, I don't think people mind that much because you've already earned their trust. Okay. So, I think we are sort of at the end of these questions. So, I mean, in the audience, we are, more importantly, we are at the end of the hour. We are end of our time, 7 minutes over. Well, like every session, I thought, these sessions can end early, but no, even these sessions are running over. But thank you everyone so much, for asking the questions, for being here, and for engaging. And I'll see you next week. I have a guest next week. It's going to be an exciting chat. Hopefully I'm going to be back in Mumbai. Not hopefully, I'm going to be back in Mumbai. And see you next week. Bye bye till then. And here is bidding adieu from Tashkent.